Everyone wants more money, but most of us weren't taught how to create an abundant life. That's where the More Money Show comes in. If you're ready to have more money, create more freedom, and experience more fun, turn the volume up. It's time to learn how to create the prosperity and life you have been dreaming of. Here's your host, Cassie Parks.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of More Money. I'm here with Elle, Russ, who is one of my favorites. She's also a podcaster, definitely LOA, and she's the host of, I'm going to let her share all of her goodness. Primal Blueprint podcast. I was going to say, I was going to share the name of her book because I'm excited about that too. But Elle, why don't you just introduce us and tell us who you are and all the cool things that you do?
Awesome. First of all, I'm so glad to be here because even though I'm also a coach like you, we sometimes can spiral down a little bit and need other people to lift us back up, which is what I'm so excited to talk about Manifest 10,000 about that, because, you know, even though you can be a really great manifestor, you can get into these areas, right? Mm-hmm. So I will start off by disclaiming that I am a really good manifestor. I kind of accidentally retired at the age of 23. I'm 43. Now when I say retired, I'm not driving around. It wasn't driving around in a Bentley retired, but it was the school teacher salary retired, where I was able to live and pursue my dreams, which was a lottery win and an amazing thing in life. So I did, and I pursued my creative endeavors of acting and writing, and I've been on TV before, and I did sketch comedy and improv for 10, 12 years, and then I started to write comedy and sitcoms, and then that just kind of kept going, and then I did a documentary, and throughout this, I actually experienced a really horrible health problem. I struggled with hypothroidism twice in a decade, and no doctors would help me, or they'd hurt me. And so eventually I wrote, I'll shamelessly put it up here, but
of course,
Paleo Thyroid Solution, which is a bestseller, a #1 in 4 categories on Amazon. And it's been just such a big hit, and it's been so great. It was released in September of 2016. And so that was really an interesting, something awful in life becoming something so great. I would never have been able to connect when I was horribly sick, crying every day, miserable and riddled with 30 symptoms. I could have never imagined that it would eventually coincide with my other dream, my creative dream of being a writer. So that in and of itself is a manifestation. But part of the reason that led me to the Manifest 10,000 and finding you was, as you know, and you've talked about this before, it's sometimes a difficult situation when you're investing a lot of your own money into your own entrepreneurial situation. Mm-hmm. You don't see the benchmarks, there are no guarantees, and you're taking some risks on yourself. And so before my book, you know, and as you know, or maybe this isn't how it works with your publisher, but essentially you get paid every 6 months. So even at the book release, it's not like you're going to get money for a while, and you still don't know how well it may do, you know, despite your efforts. And so I had gotten to this point where I had spent so much money on leading up to my book, whether it be my website or photography for my photography alone just for the book was $2,500, and I wanted the right photos, and I'm glad I spent that money. It was worth it, but money just kept going out. And you know what? I started to go down a little bit into the spiral of like, I'm tired of doing this all by myself, and and just kind of going out of the bank account and being like, and I started to get those yucky feelings about money again. And I knew that I had to turn it around, knowing what I know. And so I was like, I've got to turn this around right now, and I've got to get back into the magic, and I got to start from the basics again, because that's what I tell everyone too. When you're looking at law of attraction, The Secret, anything you want to talk about, sometimes you got to go back to basics and like manifest a cup of coffee that day. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
So I had to go back to basics, and I don't know how I found you. It was an accident. I think I was looking at just Manifest Law of Attraction podcasts. I'm assuming at that time I came across Law of Attraction Network and found you and Ginny. And so I started to listen to that. And through that, I had heard you talk about the Manifest 10K course. And you were like, it's only $1, no gimmicks. And I was like, I'm going to do this because I need to get out of this. I'm spending so much money. You know, there was a part of me that also wanted some money back for what I had spent. You know, I was like, if I could just get some money back for the photographs, just the $2,500, like that would make me feel a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I got some free extra money coming in to kind of, it was just one of those things. So I did your course. I love your book. I've read the book several times too, but the course was great for me because I loved the little podcast that you did, the daily, speaking to everybody, giving the tips. And those, what you talk about on each one of those things are these small tips that are generating the simple things, you know, because as you know, once you manifest a small thing, you're like, oh, it's working, getting the magic. And you start to get like, oh, that's right. I believe it now.
Yes.
And so those tiny things matter. And so I did your course, and in only like, I think it was 60 days or less than that, I manifested like 2,200 or something like that.
Yeah.
And by the way, I forgot to pay you for like 8 months, which was terrible. And then I was like, oh my God, I gotta pay her. But it was great because a couple of really unexpected things happened. One was because of writing my book and being involved in all this stuff, I was so busy that I kind of blew off my finances, and I hadn't kind of looked at my bank account for a while and really kind of checked out what could be or could not be kosher about that. And I had been feeling guilty, like bad about it, like going, I don't feel right about not looking at this. And so after listening to your, course and doing it, I was like, all right, I got to step up here, and I need to look at my bank account, just face this and just do the double check. And when I went on there, I discovered that a yoga company had been like deducting $100 every month for like 18 months.
Oh, wow.
1,800, it was like $1,800 or something. And it was funny is I had way long ago, I had initially joined this yoga place, and you're like this, I had joined the yoga place. It was like $100 a month. And then I discovered that the Four Seasons down the street you could join them. And so I went back to the yoga place, and I was like, hey, listen, I'm new to the area. I didn't realize there was a Four Seasons here. I'd rather join that. I'm so sorry. I know I signed up yesterday. And they were like, no problem. That yoga class you took with Anonymous, it's free, and we'll refund your money. But they never did. And because I was so busy and kind of ignored it. So that was amazing because I got a check, or it was like $1,500, I forget, 15 months. It was something substantial.
Yeah.
And I got that. And that was like, now granted, it was like an accidental forced savings, unbeknownst to me, but
right.
How long would that have gone on had I not been in a yucky feeling, had I not paid attention, had I not gone on your course and said, all right, it's time to deal with this now, because it doesn't feel right. Another tip, right? If it doesn't feel right, it's not right.
Right.
And I wasn't feeling right. So your course and your book really not only reignited the magic of it, but what happened before that yoga thing too, I had a great LOA on that. I had moved to a new area where it was like, we don't usually need air conditioning when you live near the beach here.
Right.
To the mountains where it gets to be 100 degrees. And I really realized I needed one of those portable air conditioners, and I was looking at, buying one, and I had the money to buy it. It was like, I think $300 or something like that. And I just was like, all right, well, I'll go buy that at some point in the next week. And I was just talking to a girlfriend of mine, and I had said, hey, listen, or I was just talking to her. I'm like, oh, it's getting hot up here. Like, I'm definitely going to have to go get one of those portable air conditioners. And she said, whoa, wait. My husband and I just replaced all of our air conditioners. We've got 2 of those like portable air conditioners. Like, we bought ours for like $500, but we've only used it twice and like for like 2 days. I'll sell it to you for $300. And I was like, seriously, like, what are the odds that my best friend's like, I got one for you, barely used, and the one in the store was like $300 for 10,000 BTUs. This one, $500. So I got a better, more powerful air conditioner for less, and I didn't have to go to the Home Depot or whatever to buy it. I literally went hiking with my friend. She's like, we'll go hiking and I'll give you the thing. And I'm like, I love that I'm going shopping for my air conditioner in the mountains, and that this is how that worked out. But that's how easy things just can happen like that. And notice I threw it away like, oh yeah, I'll buy that thing. There was no resistance to, I have to buy it now, or how am I going to afford it, or one day. It was just like, yeah, whatever, I'll go deal with that next week. It was a throwaway, right? Like, I already had the air conditioner. I'm not surprised it flowed in. Does that make sense? So those were things that hit me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, so much. Every time we talk, I'm always like, no wonder we connect so well, because, just, I don't know if I've heard all of sort of your story, and I know about the manifesting of the book and stuff, and I want to touch on that if we have time, but just so much of it resonates, improv and getting to retire. And I love that you highlighted that, because I don't think I knew about, retiring at 23. And that's who I was. Right?
It was a lonely place to be, as I'm sure it was for you. Yeah. Nobody my age had this level of abundance and freedom to do what they want. And by the way, and maybe for you, one of the things, the affirmations that I say constantly to keep that going is, I'm so grateful for the freedom and the abundance to do what I want whenever I want.
I love it.
I don't know anyone that wouldn't want that to be true.
Right? Absolutely. Right? Yeah. So. And I love that you highlighted, it wasn't like Bentley status, because that wasn't the case for me either, right? But it was about freedom to pursue your dreams. So I love that. I wanted to touch on that because I think that's huge. And that really is part of my mission is, some people, when they first meet me and they're like, oh, you talk about manifesting money and all this. And I'm like, look, money is freedom. It's what gives you power to do, be, and have experiences that you want. And so I just love to meet other people who've been able to create that because it's so powerful. And once you have that, you can create more and more abundance. But yeah, so
and
cool.
Pursue things that people wouldn't go and pursue for fear that it may not work out and they don't want to give this up over here. And when you have a platform, like I said, was sort of like a teacher's salary, there still was a platform to survive and pursue creative endeavors, which, as most people know, when you pursue acting or writing or any of these creative endeavors, even a musician, there are no definitive benchmarks like there are when you are a lawyer and you're going to be making it to partner. You know exactly what you have to do at each year. And so it is uncharted territory. And so I am so grateful that I had the foundation to be able to even do that. Half of the actors and people that I used to do sketch comedy with would work a 9-to-5 job and then come to the theater, and I'd be like, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they have the wherewithal after a full day at the law firm to come and then be creatively inspired. And here I was, I had all the time I needed to just do it. So I felt really blessed and still do, obviously.
Yeah. I love that. And then you said some other things I want to definitely touch on and highlight on. And it's like, even when you're good, like you can get into that place where, because that's the way, right? Like if we don't change our energy and our focus, that kind of one, it doesn't feel so good becomes another, doesn't feel so good, doesn't become, and that's, I don't know if you know this, but the reason that I had outlined the course, I'd outlined the Manifest 10K course about 5 months before I quit my job. And when I quit my job, even though I had the money coming in, it was about like you as equivalent to a teacher's salary. I felt like money was flying out the window. Same thing you did. And it was like, and you almost said my exact words. It's like, I knew enough to know this needed to get under control. And I said, yes, right. That is the first part, is to notice that you feel that change or that shift in energy. If it's been good before, if you're a person and you're like, I've never really felt like money was flowing in, then the course works too. But you said almost the words, it was like, I knew enough that I had to change what was happening. And that's how I felt, like money just felt like it was flying out and like, time to get this under control. Let me write this course and do it as I write it.
Worked out really well for you.
It did, right? Like it was a great, yeah.
And for a lot of other people. And it's so great that you're spreading this and you have this out there, because again, even someone like me who people come to for advice on manifesting, and we all have moments where we're not thinking right about something, or where we get into a negative spiral, or we let other people's negative energy get in there, and you got to get out. And the only way to get out is get back to basics, in my opinion. I mean, sometimes I don't know that I've ever been down there and then shot right to the top. I think I've always kind of gone, let's get back to the basics of generating the feelings, the gratitude, and everything else that goes along with it. I also want to say that, because I wrote some notes down about some of your tips, like getting clear about what you want.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like a lot of people are always brainstorming about what they'd be good at and not what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I just kind of want to bring that up, because had I listened to any practical advice,
right,
I would not be a best-selling author, and I would not be in this position, because everyone said, that's really competitive, or really, are you a real writer, or you just hang out at Starbucks? I mean, do you actually make money at it? No, those are patronizing, crappy things people say when you're in creative endeavors. Or they look at you like, are you going to be an actor? Good luck with that. Like, it's crappy, and you're actually even more prone to the outside world trying to negative Nancy and shoot you. Just no offense to Nancy's, but trying to shoot you down,
Yeah.
And so it even requires but I do hear a lot of people trying to figure out what they're good at. And I know you would agree with this too. I'd be good at 100 things. I'd be good at, I'd be a great agent. I'd be a great producer. I'd be a great caregiver, but I don't want to do any of those things. So I think people got to, and this is all what we're talking about here with getting into the feeling. This is not a logical thing.
No.
Pretending matters. And if you don't believe it, try it. What do you have to lose?
Right.
It is magic. It's kind of like, it feels like when I was a kid, there was something there. I felt like there had to be, and it wasn't until I'm like, oh, this is it. It's the creating your own reality and using intention to create your dreams. And if anyone out there listening or watching is really confused or wants science on that, one of the best books, in my opinion, on that is called The Intention Experiment by Lynn McTaggart, who was What to Believe Do We Know? And it's all of the scientific experience that have been corroborated hundreds of thousands of times throughout the globe that all have to do with proving that intention matters. And so I always recommend that to people that are a little skeptical of this, or they think it's too, what you just like, think about it and feel a feeling and it happens. Actually, yeah, I hate to say that it's that easy, but it is. But if you don't believe it, read the science behind it. That can even generate a different level of belief,
Yes. Yeah.
Process.
I know. And it's amazing. I was at this party the other night and somebody said, I don't know what I said. I said, I'm really into the science. Like my favorite part is the science. Like that's where I've always learned a lot. And this guy was like, there's science. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, and it's awesome because, and I'm going to go back and read that book. I haven't read it in a while, but
the audiobook's great too.
Good. Oh, that's what I'm going to get. But yeah, I love that book. Oh, that's fabulous. Yeah. And I think, I want to go to the other tips, but I want to catch a couple of really cool things that people can benefit from listening. Is like sometimes the money actually I would say more often than not, like the money is there. You're just not seeing it because it's like the space that you're in. And that yoga example is such a great example, right? It's like, it's totally there. But when you're in the place spiraling down, you just literally can't see it. And so often people think they have to go fix it. Like the way to fix this is to go look at my finances and to go analyze and do all this. And I think the better way is to really start stepping into that person who has the money, who's welcoming that $2,500 in, which is why we don't start out at that place. Because when you feel that natural, intuitive, okay, it's time to look at that, right? You're coming from that spiraled up perspective.
Yeah, and I love that it's spiral up because like that's what happens is you start spiraling down and you're like, and again, no one's really immune to it. I think we're human, we have egos that get overactive and sometimes we get too much into that. And I think we can all be put off course a little bit. And when in doubt, you get back to the basics. And there's where those audio files you had were so helpful because each day was a nice little tip and a thing to think about. And they were all kind of small. I really love when you talk about driving to another neighborhood and I've done this so many times. It's so, it works. I used to drive to Malibu all the time and from another town. And I even declared it to a stranger on the plane. They're like, where do you live? And it wasn't truth. I just go, I live on the beach in Malibu. And then 6 months later, I moved to the beach in Malibu. And someone goes, you saw that guy on the plane? I go, I did. I guess I declared it without, and because that was my intention, I wasn't trying to brag to the guy and be like,
right.
Malibu was more like, where do I want to be? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Who do I want to be? Like this guy doesn't know. So who do I want to show up as today?
Act as if, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're not giving testimony, right? It's fine. Yeah. Yeah. So that was funny. I kind of declared it. I also think obviously what story you're telling, because I started to tell that story when I was spiraling down of like, I can't afford it right now. I'm spending so much money on this. And it was always in a downery way, right? It wasn't like, I get to invest the money. I was just like, this money. And I started to get, I think, overwhelmed, a little nervous, I put thousands and thousands of dollars into myself. And it was like, this is going to work. And, I had to get out of that fear and get back to the basics. And it always generates the magic again. It's the little things that will show up. And then so many other little things showed up. This was about over a year ago. So I forget another friend of mine had called me. It owed me $200 that I just I knew, but I wasn't going to bug her on it, right. But it had been like over a year. And she called me up and was like, hey, I got a new job. she's a contractor, and she's like, hey, I got a job, I can pay you the money. That came in. So again, it was like these things popped up. Why did they pop up 3 weeks before I did your course? No, they popped up because I changed my energy.
Right.
And brought those back in, and I just, pretending works, and the gratitude works. You have to be grateful for where you already are.
Yes.
No matter what it is, you want to move and you hate your place, you stop talking smack about your place. You know what I mean?
Right.
Start to appreciate all the positive things about it. Even if it's the only thing you can say about it is, well, at least it's inexpensive, or at least it's quiet, or whatever, safe, anything positive. Because I find that, again, it's focusing on what you don't want. And, you just got to be aware when you get into that, no matter what it is, with money, or whether it's like you want to move houses. The quickest way to shorten that is to continually complain about where you're at. And so that's what I was doing, essentially.
Right.
I needed to get out of it. So thank you. I'm so glad I found you.
You're welcome.
Now I have these podcasts where I can just be like, I'm going to just keep the energy up.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love that you share that story of where you were, because I think so many entrepreneurs get into that, where it's like in the beginning, you're like, yeah, my book. Okay. I want the great photos. I want this. And then there comes a moment where you're like, oh, I invested a lot of money, and it can, when you see the numbers and you're a little bit unsure, it can put you in that space. So I love that you shared that, and that you were able to, this course shifted it, because it's so important to know as an entrepreneur that you can shift out of that, and it comes, and it's all good.
I not only shifted my energy, I gave your book to a friend and to another friend as well. I really feel like spreading the word, especially with people. I mean, I think it's good for anyone even new to law of attraction, but a lot of my friends are kind of already in it, and we all have dips, and we know. And I was like, you guys got to check this out, because this is for the dips, and this is for getting right back on track. And everybody has now, that I know, at least since, like, loves your podcast, and they're like, I love Cassie, thank you so much. I've even gotten emails from people who had issues with thyroid that contacted me or contacted me on the podcast, and they've said, thank you so much for bringing Cassie Parks on the podcast, because now I listen to her podcast and I love it. And I just want to let everyone know you will be back on this might be out later, but June 28th, you will be on our podcast. So if it comes out later, anyone could go back. That'll be the second time you're on.
Yes.
And so I hope to have you even back, more, but that was a really popular podcast. People loved it.
Oh, good. I loved it. I love being able to do that and get introduced to more audiences. And I love sharing what you do, because there are, every time you share your book, if I see it, I'm like, I'm going to share it, because I think what you do is so important in that way as well. Do you want to share the story of how you manifested that book deal?
Yeah, well, writing the book, obviously I went through horrible sickness and stuff, and I recovered on my own, actually, without doctors. So that's the impressive part of it, is that I did this on my own, and the book's a lot about that. Here's what's interesting. So this goes back to intending. Again, I was, years ago, before I really started to get into the book stuff and spend a lot of money on this book stuff, I was still an entrepreneur in terms of I was trying to write and act and, do all this stuff. And I still had this baseline, teacher salary kind of thing helping me along. I was really month to month, though, like 5 years ago. It's just real bad. I got tired of it. And one day, like, my car got towed for a bunch of kids or it was horrible. And I had to borrow like $1,500 from a friend. And I remember just feeling horrible about it. And I was like, I've got to pay them back. This has to end. And I was like, all right, well, I need to get a job. But then immediately I started to get depressed, because I was like, what job would work with what I'm doing? And I started to go down the negative spiral. Like, there's no job that would let me get auditions, or no job that, I just started to kind of be negative about it. And I started to look into things that I could do. Not that I wanted to do, but that I could. And I started to get just bummed. And finally one night I went out onto my porch in Malibu and I literally demanded. I had a real come to Jesus with the universe. I screamed at the universe. I was like, you know what my schedule is. You know what I want. You better choose the best job for me. I am tired of this month to month. I have had enough. That's it. You bring me, you bring it. And people might go, ooh, don't yell at the universe. No, do it. Demand it, because you're demanding it from yourself, of your subconscious. You are working with the universe. You demand it. If you remain in fear or think, then you don't believe in the power of your co-creation. So I just was like, I was going off, to be honest with you. I was demanding it. Within a week, I literally had 3 job opportunities with 3 different writers in Malibu, which is like kind of almost, not that writers don't live in Malibu, but that's almost impossible. I was just going to say that. It's really, really just out of nowhere. And then finally I met one of them, Mark Sisson, who became my publisher later. I met him, and it was literally just to be kind of a personal assistant. And it was funny because initially he wanted me like 30 hours a week. And I remember being like, well, I'll keep this job for a year and then I'll quit because 30 hours a week is not going to work.
Right.
I'll make the money to pay back my friend, get a little extra cash, and then I'll figure it out. Well, he had just started a publishing company. I still didn't think about it because I was a creative comedy, sitcom writer. I didn't think about a nonfiction health book at the time. But because he's in the Paleo Primal, he's like the famous guy in the paleo world. I read his book and I actually started to adopt the health principles. I ended up seeing the connections and I lowered my medication. In fact, this is not even a part of the book. And this is another crazy manifestation, but I have now for the past 4 months been off of thyroid hormones for the first time in 13 years, which is literally like kind of a medical anomaly.
Yeah.
And I haven't put it in my book yet because it was a total accident.
Yeah.
But again, it was sort of prompted by me having a little bit trouble recently with some medication and me again going, all right, enough is enough with this. You know what I mean? And then I naturally got off of it and I feel amazing and it's incredible. And it even proves my book theory even further, which I wasn't planning on being the example, but it has happened to me now. But in the book deal, this is what was really funny. So I went to him and I said, hey, what about a thyroid book? He's like, oh, I've been wanting to do a thyroid book. And I kind of pitched it to him, but then there came a point, it was like around the holidays. We had a lot of busy stuff with our company. It's Christmas time. And when I hit my boss up about it again, he was unsure about whether he'd publish it or not. And he expressed that and he was like, I don't know, I could help you find a publisher. Now I'll admit in that moment, I was like, what? Like you said you were going to publish it, now you're going to let it what? I was all like, this was my only hope. And I wrote this big outline for a book and how could this be? And I actually called my life coach and I was like, I'm really kind of an ego and angry about this right now. Like I had an expectation that something would be published. I'm kind of finding out that maybe not. And now I feel like I wasted time and my coach said, well, what do you want the end result to be? And I was like, well, I want a book deal. He goes, all right, well, why don't you just then write the book and find a book deal? And I go, no, because I do not, and I am unwilling to write a whole book. I want the incentive to write a book. I don't need money to do it, but I am not writing a full book. I want someone to give me the incentive and a deal to write it. Like I'll write that first 3 chapters, I'll do the outline, but no effing way am I going to go forward and write a whole book unless I have incentive to do so. He's like, all right, so then what you want is incentive in whatever way it could come. And he was like, you've got to start to be open to that. I'm like, all right, that's a good thing to think about. Just put out to the universe. I was like, universe, in whatever way is best for me. I want incentive. I want a book deal. I want someone to give me a deal to finish this book. And then I kind of got over the expectation yuckiness that had happened with my boss at the time, who did later publish my book. And what happened was, and I wouldn't wish this upon anybody, but like so many people in our company suddenly fell ill with hypothyroidism. Seriously. Some of his family members, a couple of our employees.
Wow.
And a couple of months later, now what happened was that was December. I started to get real kind of was like, this book thing, talked to my coach. And then here's the funny thing. So holidays went by, January came, and it was like beginning of February. And I had this thinking of like, all right, well, you know what? If I'm not going to get a book deal, what else out there right now do I have that could, generate money or just, and I was like, oh, acting. I was like, all right, acting's out there. I had another yelling, demanding, come to Jesus with the universe on that one. I was crying. I was like, I didn't pay my dues for 10 years in this industry to not get a gig. Damn it. Like, I need more. I need a resume ticker. I've had enough of this. I've been busting I really just had it like, you're going to bring it. Within 48 hours, I booked a role on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the TV show, which, by the way, whether you like the TV show or not, it's considered a very respected sitcom. I could not have booked a better show for my resume. I didn't book Law and Order. I didn't book a soap opera. I booked a top comedy with, my scene was with Andy Samberg and Jolo Trujillo, who are my two favorite, couple of my two favorite comedians. That's my scene. And honestly, And after that, I was like, well, who cares about the book then? F y'all.
Right.
Like and then shortly after, my boss came back to me and he goes, hey, what's going on with this book? I want to publish it. And I think it was because he had a family member that got Hashimoto's, and he had some other people around him that were getting sick. And I think he realized, no, this is a book I need to publish. Right. And again, I probably hit him at the wrong time in December. Maybe that was just like, I caught him on a bad, he just had stuff going on. But he was unsure. And then it became, so I did get it. And actually I wanted to have my book published through him. I didn't want to have another publisher. I was open to it. I wanted the book to come out, but I really would have preferred that it would have been him. He's my hero. I love my boss. He's the one who created the podcast I host. So I really wanted it to have that relationship with him as an author. And I did. And he's not regretting it. I'm certainly not. But it's interesting what happened in those 2 months. So from December of being like, damn it, this book thing is kind of at a wall. Yeah. But I'm also glad that I sought out my coach. Because again, I'm a coach. But he had me look at it in a different way. And I like that it was specific, right? Like I was not willing to write that whole book. That was one thing. I tell you what, Cassie, I was not. I was like, nope, it's not even a stubborn thing. No.
Yes.
I've written 3 chapters. I've done I did the absolute proper professional pitch of a book that anyone would do to a publisher. I didn't take any, freebies on working for the guy and be like, threw out some piece of junk. I really did it. And I was like, I'm not doing more than this. This warrants a book deal and I'm not going to write a whole book. And so then it changed to, okay, well then what you want is incentive. Incentive to finish it. And I got it. And I didn't get in advance because a lot of publishers don't do that nowadays unless you're Martha Stewart or something. But our publisher didn't do it. And again, I didn't want the advance. I just wanted the deal.
Right.
And I did get it. And not only that, but I'm glad the frustration of that led to a great new resume ticker on my acting resume.
Yes. Yes. And I'm a huge Brooklyn Nine-Nine fan.
How did I not?
Now I'm like, okay, tell me what episode and what season.
218, season 2, episode 218.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's just like a 5 or 6 liner. But but here's the other thing too. I always thought it would be really fun to speak a foreign language. I don't speak a foreign language fluently. The only one I could half-ass would be French because I took it for 12 years. But again, I'm certainly not a speaker. And that Brooklyn Nine-Nine role, there was like a line in French or whatever in it.
Yes.
And so it was just so funny because it kind of also combined another like, oh, wouldn't that be fun to like say a couple lines in a different language on a show?
I love it.
So I got that. And again, got to spend the day with 2 people. I love Andy Samberg. I mean, and Jolo Trujillo is just one of my favorites. If you guys don't know him, he's the weird guy at the gas station in Superbad.
So fun. I love
it. Yeah. So, again, but I think too, people are a little bit fearful. I don't know if it's God fearing or what they consider it, where they're like, ooh, you talk pretty strong to the universe there. Who are you talking to? Talking to me. I'm also talking energy. It's declaring it. It's demanding it. If you know anything about Seth, who is way precursor to Abraham, this whole thing is, and I'm a regular Seth course studier, this whole thing is the stronger the core, the faster the materialization. There was nothing stronger than my vibes emanating. Now, I didn't emanate them in fear that they wouldn't happen. It was a demand. It was like, you make this happen, but I also believed that it could.
Yes.
So I had to have that part. But, people go like, ooh, I don't know if you should. I don't dance around the universe. I'll swear at the universe. I don't effing care. Like, bring it. Now, I mean, you're really talking to yourself.
You are talking to the universe is a reflection of who you are. So
that's right.
Yeah, I love it. So good. So we have a few more minutes. Is there any other tips that you wanted to cover that you loved from the course? Because I know you kind of made a list.
Yeah, well, I love the neighborhood one. I wrote some.
Oh yeah,
in the neighborhood. Oh, also just even like you said, a couple things, like let's say you want to move or fix up your home, you can get some electric candles, or like this flower arrangement behind me.
Love it.
Is just, it was like $30 at Michael's, and it's permanent. So if you're a person that wants fresh flowers every week and you want to be able to afford that, get the one that you can afford now. And this one's lasted me for years. And so, you know what I mean? So you can fill your home with beauty or things that you would like to afford that are cheaper versions kind of now, or even like, I love candles, but if you light candles regularly, it becomes an expensive habit. And so like, here I have electric candle, like you can do that. I like the idea of, I'm a big fan of vision boards.
Yes.
And what's great is that I keep going back and checking and going, oh my God, I put that there.
Yes.
And it happened. So I'm a big fan of vision boards or vision books, but I'm really a fan of, and Mike Dooley says it as well, but like 7 to 10 minutes a day of real pure visualization, quiet, get the iPhone timer out and feel the feelings of, and I kind of go through each area of my life. So I'll feel the feelings of the money part of my life. Then I'll feel the feelings of the relationship. And then I kind of even leave one for things I put out for my friends, like manifestations. And whenever I do that, it's like life is so great. And when I stop doing it for a while and I get caught up in ego, then things start to go down. And the only way you know is how do you feel? If something's feeling yucky, it's like you're probably not on the right vibration and you need to get back to the basics. I loved, I think you talked about it too. Did you talk about when you find money, right? Like even just, I like that as well. I like, because that's very basic and we all see pennies and dimes and we find money. Or like I opened a drawer the other day and there was like $1 bill in there. We can so easily just go, whatever.
Right.
But when you're tuned in and you're taking your course, it's like, all right, it's showing up. And it seems dumb to be stoked about a nickel, but again, it's your vibration of it. I think the biggest one is probably the overall LOA that's probably been mentioned before about you cannot get to where you want to go unless you're happy and grateful for what's going on now.
Yeah.
And it's hard when you want something and you don't like where you are to be grateful for it. And a lot of people have expressed to me, and I want to call this out. They're like, well, but if I'm grateful for it, I don't want the universe to give me more of it. Do you know what I mean? But they're like, well, if I'm finding gratitude in my current job that I don't like, then I don't want the universe to think, the universe never gets it wrong. The universe knows you, knows your schedule, knows what you want. It is you. You know it. So I think a lot of people tread lightly there. Does that make sense? And
and
what do you have to say about that? Because I know you know what I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely. And I think it comes to being more specific. So what you can appreciate about your job is I appreciate like maybe if you don't have to be there exactly on time or, punch the time clock exactly on a time, you can appreciate that there's freedom in your morning, to show up at 7 or 7:15, if that's one thing. You can appreciate that money comes in from that job, right? That doesn't mean that you're like saying, okay, I only want this amount of money forever. You're saying, I appreciate when money comes in. Other thing, what else? Like if you get to choose where you go to lunch, if you have the freedom to walk outside and walk around the block, once in a while, find the things that you love, and appreciate those, because you are telling the universe, like, I want more of this stuff that I enjoy.
Right. And also, what if it's, I'm so grateful that I have the money so that I can look for another job.
Yes. Right. Exactly.
You gotta find something good about it because it's hard. Even if you have a crappy boss or something like really contentious going on, there's something. And even if it is, I've got money and benefits, then when you go to the negative, you got to come right back around and go, hold on a minute. And I also love to get back to basics on, and I think because I was, I've had some physical stuff in life and I know the contrast of what it's like to be really sick. I feel that most people just walk right over. I mean, I wake up every day and I am so grateful that I have my eyes, my ears, my arms, and my legs. You can just start there. Gratitude can start there. I mean, I'm brought to tears sometimes by it. There's people in this world that don't have legs. And if you are one of those people, there's something else that you look at and go, at least that's not me or whatever. Right. We all have something to be grateful for, even if it's in contrast to something that we think is worse or whatever, but whatever generates the feeling of gratitude, even if it's a comparison. And just, I guess, pretending really, really works. And you've got to just try it.
Yeah.
No one needs to know. You can be secret about this. If you think everyone thinks you're an idiot and crazy, don't tell anybody. Just really do the experiment on yourself. You don't have
just do it and have fun. Yeah. Very cool. Awesome.
And I also love I want to mention one thing I heard the other day, and I don't know if you've ever mentioned this or heard of this, but I thought it was so cool. I heard someone in talking about governmental stuff or whatever, someone said an LOA, I guess a term in the world, LOA means letter of acceptance. like in general in the world.
Yeah.
I was like, there you go, because you talk about that as one of the principles. Aside from getting clear, it's about accepting it. And I had a client the other day who was having a tough time. She wanted to go on a self-retreat. She had gotten into an accident. She wanted to go on a fancy retreat. And she said, well, but I feel so bad because all of this money could be spent helping other people. And that's a comment that makes you look at, why don't you feel you're worthy of that?
Yeah.
Right. And looking at that. So I feel letter of acceptance. You've got to accept it. If you've been given abundance, this is why 90% of lottery winners lose all of their money and go broke quickly. It has nothing to do with, yes, they squandered it or they gave it away, but a lot of people give it away and squander because they don't feel worthy of it. And so it's not just because they're all idiots. It's literally just what's their money vibe. And so even someone who's wealthy that can afford a 10,000 week retreat is sitting there going, I don't know if I should do this for myself. I feel guilty. Got to come around to acceptance, right? You can still give money away, but as you and I know, you could give all the money away in the world to people and it'll get right back in the hands of the people with the correct mindset, essentially, because the other people will either lose it or squander it or not feel worthy. And the people that do are the ones that, I also want to share this. A person had a thought where they said to me, I don't think it's fair. I met this one person and they're such a jerk and but they have all this money. And I go, well, here's the thing. They're thinking absolutely perfectly about money. Are they happy in their other areas of their life? Probably not. Probably a total disaster. But what you can learn is that they're thinking right about money. They believe they deserve it. They believe they're going to continue to get it. They're absolutely like, I'm a money maker. And I heard one of those types of people that people think is a jerk say this quote, I make money hand over fist. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to take that one. I like that.
Right.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because you can integrate that into you, right? It can be, you can have that and you can have your awesome, nice, caring personality.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So let's make sure to tell everybody where they can find you and connect with you, and they can find your book, and if they want to hear you on the Primal Blueprint podcast, all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, anyone could just go to my website, elleruss.com, which is ELLERUSS. And if anyone is curious about thyroid, you don't even have to buy my book. I send everybody a big free document of here's how to get on the right path. And then I'm _Elle Russ on Instagram and everywhere else, but you can connect through my website, and my book's at Barnes and Nobles all over the country and also Amazon, and it's called The Paleo Thyroid Solution. And the Primal Blueprint podcast is every Wednesday. And I interview a lot of people in the arena of health and fitness, but I also am starting to interview, by the way, here's an LOA. Did you like The Secret, the movie or the audiobook?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Well, one of the I wanted to try to get some of the teachers on my podcast. And
awesome.
I did. Got just yesterday. They agreed. Now looks like it's not going to be till January 2018.
Yes.
That was a moment because I first listened to all of that and started this in 2007 with Law of Attraction. So I had a teary-eyed moment of I can't believe I got to interview one of my favorite people in this arena, and just to be able to see that, where that's gone. Yeah, every Wednesday I'm trying to interview more LOA and, coaches like yourself to just sort of balance out. The health stuff can get a little bit, after a while, I want to switch it up. And part of our health is what's going on here, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your Manifest 10K story. Make sure to check out Elle Russ at elleruss.com, and come back next week for another awesome episode about somebody who's welcoming more money into their life. Thanks, Elle.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on The More Money Show. To learn the step-by-step process to welcome more money into your life, go to manifest10k.com.